I want to get to your bottom of the barrel and your top of the world segment right out the game. Where you at? Let's pull it up, Bailey. We got Steve's top 5 and bottom 5 of the weekend. Break these down, Steve.
Yeah, so let's go top 5. No real order again, but the guy that stood out to me, Kyle Honda McCord. You know what? I think he's now Alexis. I don't know how Zach Smith feels about that, but he has injected new life into that Syracuse offense.
Steve, you know football. How good is this Syracuse team? Seriously, like in that pick of things.
They're about an 8-9 win team.
Really?
They do. They have a good running back in Quentin Allen. Oronde Gadsden's son's a big target tight end. Fran Brown is an old school football coach. That's a guy that has no frivolity, no sunshine in his life. I don't know how long they're going to be able to keep him. I get the sense that even after this year, that he will be a hot commodity in the coaching circles. He's going to be a guy that a lot of athletic directors are going to have at the top of their list if they are in the market for a good football coach. But I thought McCord played about as decisive and as confident a game as he has ever played. If he would have played last year in that fashion, Ohio State wins the national title, and he'd probably be the quarterback this year in Columbus. But shout out to him. He is playing with the new sense of confidence. And I really think that this Syracuse team is going to be a very, very tough out. He's got people excited there. Does Fran Brown. Miami goes to the Dome to end the year. That's going to be a bit, I wouldn't even say a trap game. That could be a tough game. Number 2, the Hammock Huskies. Wow. Northern Illinois. What a job they did. They outgained them. They outrushed them. They outpassed them. They out-time of possession them. And they overcame corrupt officiating. And I love what Thomas Hammock said at the end at his press conference. He said, my job is to develop young men for the real world. This is not just about football. And I think that's an incredible message because he understands the type of players and the young men that he is getting. And for all of you jock riding Deion Sanders because it's about black coaches, Thomas Hammock is black. Fran Brown is black. So will Terrell Owens ever be on their sidelines acting like a cheerleader? Anyway, my next guy, Cal, Golden Bears. They were clearly the better team on the Plains. And Peyton Thorne was awful. I believe Hugh Freeze has to take some of that NIL money and get himself a quarterback. They have some great young, talented receivers like Cam Coleman, but Peyton Thorne had a great chemistry last Saturday with Cal defenders. I don't know what they're going to do for the time being, but Miami plays Cal October 5th. I'm going up to that game. That game suddenly looks a lot trickier, especially if Jade Knott can get healthy. He's been a little bit banged up, but Cal looks like they are on the upswing. Tough, hard-nosed victory in the heart of SEC country. Now, a guy that I actually think is number 1 right now in my Heisman poll. I have number 1 based on how he performed in a huge setting against a pretty good team, but they're down. The mighty Quinn Ewers. He looks like
you said Heisman or NFL?
Heisman and number 1 pick. He could be both. He's a more athletic, more fleet of foot Phillip Rivers. Got that kind of that low, funky release.
3-quarter.
He knows how to layer that ball. It's nice and soft. It's catchable. But the way he performed, I did not understand anyone picking Michigan last week. I really didn't, with all due respect. One team has a walk-on. Former walk-on. The other guy has a top 5 pick at quarterback. That's one of the big factors when you look at a game is who are your quarterbacks. They touch the ball every play. And Steve Sarkisian has grown and developed and matured into a top-flight coach. Back-to-back years, went to Tuscaloosa and the Big House, controlled both games. Texas looks like they're going to be a playoff lock. And then finally, the Black Shirts of Nebraska. The Black Shirts. That was vintage Black Shirts defense from the very beginning. They set the tone. They were physical. They were mean. And looking at this tape, I saw some breakdowns, all 22. Tony White did a great job. But all they basically did was rush 4, drop 7. They did not bring that many pressures. Everyone thinks it was about the blitzing and the stuff. They didn't. It was 4 guys rushing up front, dropping 7, some Tampa 2, cover 2, kept everything in front of them. And they absolutely beat up Colorado physically in every level of the game. Look at the Nebraska schedule. They could be 7-0 going into that Ohio State game, and then reality will hit. But hey, congratulations for now.
Hey, right now, speaking of Nebraska, we always talk Colorado. Are they a 5-game team, win team, 6? Smitty and I have a bet going on. Where are you at with Nebraska? How many games can they win theoretically right now, based on what you do 2 weeks?
Nebraska can be
an 8-win team, 9-win team,
8 to 9-win team. Yeah, I think they're going to be 7-0 going into Ohio State. Now, I don't know if anyone beats Ohio State, but Matt Rule is ahead of schedule. The next thing that he needs to focus in on in terms of player acquisition, he needs some number 1 or 2 receivers. He has decent receivers outside.
Yeah.
I don't think he has a real number 1. And if you have Dylan Raiola, you're going to be able to attract certain guys that could stretch a defense. I don't think they have a real stretcher that can come out there and take the top off the defense. They have to kind of go piecemeal on that and run the ball with Dowdell. But look, that's a real football program. Matt Rule knows how to build programs. He's actually ahead of schedule. Look, as long as they have him, Nebraska will continue to be a serious football program. Now, bottom 5. Boy,
bottom of the barrel. Let's go.
This right here, I did not understand. The Michigan quarterback situation is baffling to me. And I read a story on Fox Sports last week that kind of detailed the last 6 years of their recruiting, some of the misses, bad evals, guys that decide to go anywhere else. And if there's any player that has missed more than J.J. McCarthy, you'd have to tell me, because he at least held that offense together, even if he didn't always put big numbers together. Now, to be fair to whoever's playing quarterback at Michigan, they lost at least a dozen or so guys to the National Football League. They lost a Joe Moore quality offensive line. They lost their best, quickest running back in Blake Corum. Defensively, they'll still be in games, but it is hard to win in a loaded conference where everyone's going to score a little bit if you cannot consistently put together drives. And I don't know. Alex Orji, it's obvious to me they only look at him as a running back or basically a wildcat situational quarterback. Navy Davis Warren's as good as it gets until Tuttle comes back. Now, other one, Sam Pittman. I hate to do this, Sam. Your Arkansas team was clearly the best one on the field in Stillwater last Saturday. That would have been a huge victory against Oklahoma State. Taylon Green is the next great Bobby Petrino quarterback. And unfortunately, because you don't stress ball security or players are undisciplined, Bobby Petrino may be the next coach again at Arkansas with Taylon Green. Sam, after that first fumble or two, you got to gather your team and say, guys, if you drop the ball again, I'm going to kill you. Because quite frankly, my multi-million-dollar job is on the line.
They're horrible on special teams. They're just a lot of head coaching blunders that you just can't.
You can't even catch a snap. You have poor situational football awareness. They were clearly the better team. And Jaquindon Jackson secures that running game. And they have some athletes outside. I was really impressed by the Arkansas offense. But that game, if you look at the stats, that was a one-sided game that they absolutely blew. And I don't think it helped Sam Pittman's cause. Now, also, Colorado. You asked for all the heat. You got the heat. And people kept saying, oh, it's different. They're different this year. Different does not mean better. It really doesn't. And offensive line-wise, you're trying to piece together a unit based on the transfer portal and an 18-year-old freshman. And they are bad. And they don't try to run the ball. It does not help them. But I want to say one thing about those now ripping Pat Shurmur. I think that's the new guy because he's white. It's easy to blame him. I get it. I have a question, fellas. Who fired or basically moved on from Shaun Lewis as the offensive coordinator? Who was in charge of that, guys? Who do you think made that decision?
I said it yesterday, Steve. I keep saying it. I don't know why we keep dismissing the head coach as the guy that pulls the trigger. I've never known an assistant to outrank the head coach. Right. That doesn't make sense to me. Deion is now the guy.
So who brought in Pat Shurmur?
Deion. Deion is good friends with Pat's father, And that was the hire. I mean, it's just real simple. Everybody that's associated with that program, even had Zimmer at one point. Deion had Zimmer, a legendary defensive guy who's now with the Cowboys again, back in the league, where he belongs, in my opinion. He's a mentor of Deion's. Deion knows and keeps guys tight to his vest. I like that because you can't trust a lot of people in this business. So I see the hires that he made, but then there's guys that haven't really called it at this level either. And it's very, very different. Going from the NFL under your dad's tutelage to going to the college level and then having to run a situational program. And I mean situational, Steve, because of the father-son dynamic. It's very different. It's hard.
If Pat Shurmur suddenly went under center and handed the ball off, traditional ISO downhill running plays, toss, pitch, sweeps, you know what people would say? Because behind that offensive line, I don't think a lot of things are going to work against quality teams. They'd say, why is Shurmur not playing to Shadur's strengths?
Yeah. Right.
But again,
Smitty actually said it yesterday because he's like, Shadur made the excuse when he brought up Raiola. Did he get hit that many times? Smitty kind of alluded, that's your excuse. You're making an excuse comparing yourself to the other quarterback.
Well, if Shadur has a problem with his offensive line talent, like put it in the suggestion box. Hey, head coach, what are you doing?
Right.
I mean, again, look, I have no issues with Coach Prime, but I will say this. If I had a football coach, and thankfully Mario Cristobal, that's not you, said, well, I don't need to do home visits. Really? So you think you're going to recruit top 250 players not doing – he literally said, they just need to come to my home and see this could be you. Really? Really? That's lazy.
It ain't going to work.
You really think you're going to compete with the Texas?
Not going to build a program. I'll tell you that.
The Alabamas and the Ohio States by not doing home visits. Okay, let me know how that works out. Okay, so moving on. Got to be honest. He's half crouching tiger.
He wears some.
Dang, Steve.
He wears spandex.
Asian crime right now.
Steve, he wears spandex, Steve.
I mean, there's a lot of Notre Dame fans that want you to be Marcus fired, man. I've been listening to a lot of certain Notre Dame content creators like Mike Goolsby, who played. The guy knows football. He's done. Not only is the honeymoon over, not only are they not just sleeping in separate beds. If Marcus Freeman was the husband, because it's always the husband, he'd be sleeping at the local Motel 6. And the Notre Dame fans, they want to call a divorce lawyer. It's one thing to lose to Marshall in year one and then a really bad Stanford team. But to lose in year 3 to a 38-point dog, unacceptable. But I'll say this. They have nobody outside that threatens anyone. There's no Rocket Ismail or Lake Dawson. There isn't. And I said this after week 1. They got to put the offense on the legs of Jadion Love or Jeremiah Love. He is a stud, but he needs to be fed because he's your best athlete, most consistent playmaker. But what did they think they were getting in Riley Leonard? Riley Leonard is not a natural arm talent that can consistently put the ball on guys, and he's coming off an injury. That is where I'm thinking you were not getting a great passer. You were getting a tough, hard-nosed athlete that could lead. You better play to his strengths. But again, they have the ball 2nd and 1 at about the 45. 4 minutes to go. I would have kept running the ball. They try a kill shot with the deep post. It's underthrown, and the ball gets run. Me and Smitty looked at each other like, what the hell were they doing?
Right.
That ball needed to go right back. You move the chain, squeeze the clock. That's a bad play call and an even worse pass. But Marcus, you're on the clock now. You are. The Notre Dame fans want blood.
This is your segment. We're letting you cook. I love it. I got to ask you, though, like, who really thought Marcus Freeman was going to be good coach? I didn't.
Well, obviously Notre Dame, because look, I'm with you. Look, I don't think Notre Dame should ever be someone's first head coaching gig.
Me either.
I think it's a tough job. You're in such a fishbowl. There's expectations, and you have to win.
I think Brian Kelly lost 8 or 9 games in his entire career at Notre Dame.
He lost more than that because his first year they lost 4 or 5. Let me say one thing about Brian Kelly. Okay, I get it. You don't want to go up on a tower on a windy day with him in charge. However, the guy made at least 2 playoffs, and they played Alabama in a national title game, and they were generally always a top 10 team. And one thing Brian Kelly has done throughout his career, going all the way back to when he was at Cincinnati and beyond, he develops quarterbacks pretty consistently.
Yeah.
Right.
Too, yeah.
And Marcus Freeman is a guy that's bright. He's personable. He's recruiting at a pretty high level. He better himself a quarterback, and he better recruit more receivers that are twitchy and fast. Because if you want to be a team that can contend for a national title, got to have a little bit more speed. But why did they hire Marcus Freeman? Coach, in my view, it's because he's the antithesis of Brian Kelly. He's a younger, good-looking guy that probably does Pilates and obviously yoga and looking at the pants. And, like, he's a different face. Yeah, he's a good-looking guy. He's on the cover of magazines. And
got some Udoka in him. Got some Udoka in him. He'll screw that, well, I think.
Hopefully for his wife, hopefully not.
Through the front office.
But I'm just saying, like, he's a different type of personality, different persona, different feel. But again,
let me ask you broke this game down so eloquently, and I'm sitting there like you're really stressing like what they should have did late, and they should have did it. It was Northern Illinois. It shouldn't have been a discussion about nothing but take a knee.
Right. Well, there's still enough time.
That's a serious program, Steve.
Right. Well, look, Ontario Brown was probably the one guy on Northern Illinois that would stress you. He had a really good game. He could probably get drafted. But I was impressed by Ethan Hampton at Northern Illinois. He was actually a better player than Riley Leonard. He made the passes that were available. He was very tough. He moved the chains. But again, if you look at the numbers, Notre Dame got outrushed and outpassed. There was nothing fluky about this victory. Okay? So,
Dave, how are they ranked 5th then? Is it all because of ABC and the television contract and the media propaganda? Like, is that all that we got out of their number?
Look, Notre Dame's always habitually a little bit overrated. And because they went to Texas A&M and they won against an SEC team, there was probably an overvaluing of that win. I think that certainly played a part in it. And finally, guys, moving on. I have to say this because this unit cost this program a victory. The Boise State special teams, a punt return and then a kickoff return. That's 14 points in a game that you lose on a last play walk-off field goal, wiping out a heroic effort by the best running back in the country, Ashton Jeanty. I think Oregon has some deep problems that I don't know if they can fix this year. That offensive line, it is a downgrade from last year. There's something about that Oregon team that does not scream out top 5 the way I thought it would be. No. Ashton Jeanty, if you have not seen him, look him up. He is a guy that should be in the Heisman discussions, and it's a shame that their inability to stay in their lanes and surround the ball and just make routine tackles cost them, I think, maybe the biggest program victory that they ever had.